Rick and Morty Season 7, hunting my nemesis. Maybe trying to stay healthy while doing it, juggling plates. Not every episode, Morty. It could be all happening in the background, who knows? You and me, Morty.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my Rick and Morty Season 6, Episode 10 video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, and obviously they tease Season 7, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, I will be doing videos for all the Season 7 episodes next year when they release. They will be releasing next year. Careful for spoilers from this episode. If you haven't seen it yet, we'll start at the beginning, just work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs, WTF moments as we go along, starting with the episode title. It was called Ricktional, Mortpoon's Rickmas, Mortcation, which is a reference to the movie National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, mostly because it was a Christmas-themed episode where Rick and Morty both save and ruin Christmas. One of the big differences with the episode is that they didn't play the traditional intro sequence. I think it's probably the first time that they've done that. I don't remember previously them doing an episode that didn't have those special intro scenes. They had a special Christmas-themed title with Christmas lights hung all over it with a Christmas version of the theme song. The opening scene is of Robot Rick, as we learn, programmed to be nicer, celebrating Christmas with the family, giving them all gifts that they'd wanted this whole time. And that the real version of Rick had denied them, or at least in different realities, because they've been jumping realities a couple times throughout the show. But there's a joke about that later where Morty gets the lightsaber and Rick reveals that he's had a lightsaber this entire time, like ever since before the events of Season 1. Rick clowning on him, saying that he could have done this at any time. The ugly Christmas sweater that Jerry's wearing with the deer on it also reminded me of the deer that he and Beth almost killed. The joke about the extended edition of Miracle on the 34th Street, I guess is the writers think that it's a boring movie and it's already too long, but because Jerry's so boring, he loves that and wants an even longer version. I can't believe they cut all this stuff out. When they start watching the actual movie, it plays like one of Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon's fake movies from interdimensional cable, where it's meant to feel like a parody of a movie. Like, imagine if you asked somebody the plot of Miracle on the 34th Street who never actually seen the movie and them trying to explain that to someone. So it's just the character screaming about different streets for a long time. Robot Rick references Rick's original Beth who was killed in his original reality and references the clone Beth thing again, giving them the same gift. Like, oh yeah, I guess we're doing that thing where we don't decide who's the real one and who's the clone. The ice cream she's eating in the picture is also a reference to Fruity Land that he subsequently created in all the other realities where Beth did live. The weird Venmo joke, I guess, is a joke that Gen Z, like Summer's generation, is very tech savvy, but they also, like all teenagers, just want more money. So give it to me in the app instead of giving me just like physical cash. Joke's on Summer though, because I believe that Venmo takes a commission, so however much money Rick gave her, they'd actually be taking a cut of that. He gives Morty a real lightsaber, and they make a ton of jokes about copyright, IP, George Lucas, Disney, Star Wars, everything Star Wars, all Star Wars jokes you could possibly make. Making it sound like the Star Wars universe is just one of the infinite universes inside the Rick and Morty universe. Like, Star Wars is now canonically part of Rick and Morty, but it's like a real place that Rick could portal to. And he just stole this lightsaber from one of the many Jedi there. When he calls Morty his number one, number two, that means he's his second favorite person behind probably Bird Person. Because there are so many Star Wars jokes throughout the entire episode, I would bet they had to clear this with Lucasfilm's lawyers, who are usually happy to allow stuff like this within reason. The only stuff that they really put a kibosh on is like use of Grogu. When they debuted Grogu on The Mandalorian Season 1, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau said that they had to turn down tons of requests from like all these other media outlets because if they let people, everybody in creation would use Grogu in their thing. So they're protective of a couple things, and later in the episode when it turns into more of a Return of the Jedi parody with the White House and the Death Star, they make a lot of the designs look different from the actual Star Wars designs so that it feels much more like a parody. All to protect them from getting sued out of existence by Lucasfilm's lawyers. But like when Morty starts using the lightsaber and when Rick uses his later, it makes all the exact sounds that it makes in all the Star Wars movies, the Star Wars TV shows. Like all the lightsaber effects are meant to be accurate.
Holy crap! I hate to say it, but...
A blaster. An elegant weapon.
The whole bit with "strike me down, I'll become a pile of clothes" is an Obi-Wan Kenobi line from A New Hope. When he does it, but then shows up behind the cart of fruit, I think that's meant to be a joke about the Prestige movie. They set off the actual plot of the episode when he drops it vertically and it starts burning its way through the core of the Earth, claiming that it's going to destroy the core and destroy the planet subsequently. Those are just more general jokes about what you could theoretically cut through with the lightsaber. Like, everybody has that argument, like, what could you actually cut through if you had a lightsaber? Because one of the bits of the episode is the President and Morty both coming up with their own Star Wars games that they played. The added benefit here is that they also use this to reveal how many layers Rick has in his lab. He has 23, but here's the thing, it seems like there are only 22 of the layers that are actually part of this universe, and the BX actually leads to a place outside the universe or like some interdimensional place. Otherwise it would just say B23. So you can post all your theories in the comments below. Where do you think the BX leads to? I just feel like it leads to some place outside this universe, or it leads to a place that's pure theory, like purely conceptual idea of a place. Sort of like Rick breaking the fourth wall, like, oh, it's just another dimension on top of this dimension. We learn he's got a regular old sushi restaurant on level 15 that he just goes to every once in a while. Level 10 is where the real version of Rick is, who's been pursuing Prime Rick for the past couple of episodes, ever since the Knights of the Sun incident, which he references a couple of times, clowning on it, saying that the whole premise was stupid, like it's the writers clowning on the previous episode. We've been to the first layer of his lab a bunch of times. It's actually pretty common. The layer below that seems like it's a botany-themed plant one, and all of them seem like they're alive. Like this one in the back seems like it actually has a face. Below that, they have all the sacks with the people in them. We've seen these sacks before, but I think the idea here is that they're either being held prisoner because they're dangerous, or he's just performing experiments on them. But them showing you the buttons to all the other levels is just a way to tease, like, oh yeah, we're probably going to show some of these other levels in future seasons. Rick makes a pretty solid Netflix burn. The joke is just that Netflix dramas are super lame and super basic. And Rick has been doing super basic things like, I've just been looking for him this whole time. There's nothing exciting about it. I've just been looking for Prime Rick. When the president returns, he seems like he totally knows about Star Wars universe being a real thing. He's not surprised at all at the existence of a real lightsaber. Love that the president's Secret Serviceman is a Star Wars fanboy.
You know what's in the hilt of that thing?
Kyber crystals!
Okay, nerd.
Then the rest of the episode really turns into like a Morty versus the president kind of episode. Like even though Rick hates the president, it was more of a Morty versus the president episode. He makes a bunch of jokes about professional Star Wars angry fanboys, like people who get mad at Star Wars on social media purely for profit, like Star Wars YouTubers who only complain about Star Wars.
Lucas promised a new trilogy for decades. Then, when he delivered, fans turned on him and started giving any knucklehead with nerd cred a shot, and churned out these irredeemable cash grabs.
He makes fun of the prequels, he makes fun of the Disney era of Star Wars. The whole Gen X hatred reference is about older Star Wars fans hating on younger fans who are fans of the newer Disney era Star Wars. It'd be like you getting mad at a little kid who likes the newer Star Wars. And even though he consoles him, he continues to make fun of him, like he implies he'd rather play Star Wars games than have sex. But the joke there is that he's also kind of clowning on himself because the president also just wants to play Star Wars games with the lightsaber. So it's sort of like the writers saying that old Star Wars fans are ridiculous and the newer young Star Wars fans also just as ridiculous. When he makes the joke about George Lucas's trademark lightsaber, I think that's also probably to try and help them not get sued by Lucasfilm. Like, yeah, clearly trademarked, clearly copyrighted by Lucasfilm, George Lucas. Rick's stuff killing people when they touch it is a callback to Season 3 when he fought the president. The Secret Service agent also killed automatically when he tried to touch Rick. The I told you so technology. The Amazon Alexa burn is just that Amazon uses Alexa to steal all your personal information and listen to your conversations, like basically spy on you in order to earn more money off of you. Everybody running around their rooms turning off all their Alexa devices if they have them. When he mentions Randy Quaid, he was actually part of the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Phil Spector, just a really crazy person who killed his wife that also looks disheveled, kind of like Rick does in this episode. The big drill ship going to the planet's core is a Deep Impact movie reference. It's not a good movie, but the ship itself is also a giant lightsaber hilt. The big joke here is that they're just going to use one lightsaber to destroy the second lightsaber, and then an even bigger lightsaber like the lightsaber ship to destroy the other lightsaber. When he says he doesn't want to be neurotypical, that's him just saying that he believes that being neuroatypical, thinking in a way that's different from most people, is part of what makes him the smartest person in the universe. So thinking like everyone else, being neurotypical would be like a big step down for him. Rick having a Sith lightsaber seems very on brand for him, having a red lightsaber. They make another butter robot joke, lightsaber, what's your purpose? To stay vertical. Which they then take back because the lightsaber itself has this level of sentience and sasses him by taking off and killing a bunch of people. Which they use for a joke about the president being super shady because he blames all the deaths on Saudi Arabia. That's also meant to set up the bit at the end of the episode where he blames the second lightsaber accident on Morty again, like, Morty got a lightsaber, everybody, sorry, oh, and by the way, I'm in space. The Stay on Target bit is a Star Wars New Hope reference to Luke Skywalker's Death Star trench run blowing up the Death Star. Robot Rick's game about guessing who is a robot is basically his desperate attempt to tell everyone the truth without violating the programming that will cause him to self-destruct. It's also meant to be a callback to Season 3 with Robot Morty and Robot Summer wanting to exist like humans and crying out before Rick deactivated them. Rick makes a bunch more jokes about Gene. He's a regular punching bag of the show, so no big surprise there. He makes a weird David Arquette joke, which I guess is just a joke that David Arquette is super lame. And he basically reveals that he's been doing all this stuff, creating Robot Rick and living like this the past couple of episodes because Morty basically hurt his feelings by implying that he's boring. Like it's all because he got his feelings hurt. Morty telling the president that he doesn't want to have his age changed so that he can vote is just him saying that he hates the current political culture war and doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Like, I am super happy to not be part of that right now. They make a joke about the Star Wars saying, "May the Force be with you," when the president basically turns into a version of the Emperor stealing the lightsaber from Morty. He makes another Gen X older Star Wars fan joke about how he was raised on the original trilogy, like how he's a true fan and Morty is not because he's a fan of the newer stuff. The Muppets joke is about the Ewoks, like most Star Wars fans hated the Ewoks when Return of the Jedi came out. He makes a bunch more Disney Star Wars jokes. Transform and Roll Out is also a Transformers joke, another big 80s franchise. I literally just did a trailer video for Transformers Rise of the Beast, which is basically a Beast Wars movie. I'll put a link for that in the description below because it actually looks pretty decent. Transformers movies looking up now that they got rid of Michael Bay. Them marching out in formation is a reference to the Empire, just part of the idea that the president is turning into a version of the Emperor at the end of the episode. The family turns on Robot Rick in a montage using the first Noel Christmas song, which they use later in the episode too. They use his parts as Christmas ornaments. Then during the montage, as the president plays with Morty's lightsaber, he also drops it again, doing the exact same thing that Morty did. Jerry has a long dark night of the soul kind of moment when he asks Summer for drugs, like, "Summer, do you have anything on you right now?" And they continue with the whole idea of the president turning into a dirtbag because he basically escaped to space in the White House. Like he had the secret escape plan, like, "Oh, you'll all be destroyed, but not me." The whole thing with Prime Rick showing up all over the multiverse is his way of spoofing his signal so that it seems like he's in every single universe. It's just a way to show you how he is one step ahead of Rick. Like, it'll take him a lot more work to actually find him during Season 7. That's part of the big teaser at the end of the episode, part of his new rant. 100 years of Rick and Morty looking for Prime Rick. Even though the White House is meant to be a parody of the Death Star now, his office layout here is actually a reference to Sisko's office in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He also implies that he doesn't know how to cook a simple egg, like he's that dumb. Morty cutting through the door with the lightsaber is a Phantom Menace reference. Remember, the whole idea here is that the president hated the prequels, making fun of them, along with the new trilogy, so this is meant to be another dig at him, like an older Star Wars fan being clowned on. Some of you may have detected the Mr. P reference as a super deep cut because the rapper Mr. P actually interviewed George Lucas 20 years ago to try and get him to make a quote-unquote ghetto Star Wars version.
Somebody told me you already have 5 episodes already done already.
Well, I've got one more to write, and all of these were written 30 years ago.
Your journey is now complete is one of the Emperor's lines from Return of the Jedi, and this scene is also meant to play out like a Return of the Jedi parody with him confronting him on the Death Star. They're taking a lot of shots at Star Wars fans, the US president, like they're saying the whole White House is the Death Star. Morty grabbing Robot Rick before he tries to kill himself in the door is an Indiana Jones Temple of Doom joke with him saving his hat at the last minute. They've also used that joke in subsequent Indiana Jones films as well. Them making more Lucasfilm general jokes during the episode just because so much of it is a Lucasfilm Star Wars joke. They reveal the president has a whole-ass fanboy room full of Star Wars memorabilia and replicas made to look like the Emperor's throne room in the Death Star. A lot of it is actually working technology too, because remember, the whole idea is that the Star Wars universe is real inside the Rick and Morty multiverse. Even though to avoid copyright being sued by Lucasfilm, they made some of these look like parodies, but they're meant to look close to versions from Star Wars. Like he's got a version of a cantina, he's got replicas of the Death Star trench run, scale size. Some of the robots are made to look different for copyright reasons, like I said, but these are meant to be battle droids. He's got an R5 unit. You can let me know who you think this is, frozen in carbonite. He's got a TIE Advanced, a regular TIE Fighter, there's an AT-ST. All the banners on the upper level are meant to be parody versions of the Imperial banners too, but changed for copyright reasons. And he claims that Jimmy Carter built it when he was in office because he was president when the first Star Wars movie A New Hope was released. Ronald Reagan tried to destroy it when he took office. George W. Bush added kegs. You can guess what the other US presidents did to it when they took office. Like, he doesn't talk about George Sr., he doesn't talk about Bill Clinton. It always felt like the Keith David president was meant to be a version of Obama. So I don't know if Obama was also president in this reality or the Rick and Morty multiverse, or if he's just meant to be the version of Obama. Because within Rick and Morty canon, he's meant to be a different person, like his name is not the same as Obama's name. The droids he releases on them are real. They're meant to be versions of the pit droids from Phantom Menace. They've also featured those during The Mandalorian later in the timeline. They give Morty a big lightsaber battle. The robots with too many lightsabers are a General Grievous joke. The president makes a bunch more Disney Star Wars jokes, and the joke about the poor CGI in the Disney Plus Star Wars shows I think is meant to be a Book of Boba Fett joke, but also a joke on a lot of the Marvel Disney Plus series. The one big green screen that he starts talking about is called the Volume. It's technically not a green screen, it's a different type of technology. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have talked a lot about it in their behind-the-scenes featurettes. The lightsaber Gatling gun seems like a Nerf gun joke, like it actually looks kind of like a real Nerf gun. They pay off the vertical lightsaber bit again when the tiny ones pass through Robot Rick's body, destroying the White House, and playing the same song as before. Real Rick saves them, but the dramatic speech that Robot Rick has is meant to be a reference to Darth Vader's death on the Death Star. Then they make up, and he starts helping him find and kill Prime Rick. Like, he basically says he's going to join his mission, which they say will happen during Season 7. And him ranting about finding Prime Rick is a callback to all of his rants in previous seasons, like his new rant, 100 Years, Rick and Morty, New Szechuan Sauce Rant, is all about finding Prime Rick during Season 7. Also meant to be their official teaser for Rick and Morty Season 7, which they'll probably spend more episodes actually hunting Prime Rick. But the rest of the rant is also similar to Season 4 when they came back from the break and he ranted about not every episode being part of the overarching story, like sometimes there'll be one-offs. So this is their way of saying that, oh, like the Prime Rick story will continue in a much bigger way during Season 5, but not every single episode. Then in the post-credit scene, they have a big callback to Season 2 when they bring back Mr. Poopy Butthole, who's watching the episode like he was in the Season 2 post-credit scene. But he also references the events of his previous post-credit scenes where he lost his family. They basically left him. Apparently, he's been getting super ripped since he lost his family. His trainer, Carl, is a reference to Dan Harmon's real-life assistant who's helped him with his workouts sometimes. Like, if you follow Dan Harmon on social media, during the pandemic in particular, he was actually doing a bunch of workouts and streaming them on his social media accounts. So Mr. Poopy Butthole doing a bunch of workouts is like a big Dan Harmon joke. He breaks his legs and they have a bunch more jokes about his ex-wife, or maybe they're just separated, blocking his number. I guess the joke there is that he just spent so much time harassing her or calling her on the phone that she had to block his number. And I believe they plan to release Season 7 episodes around the same time next year, maybe a little bit earlier in the summer, but close to the same time. I'll do a video as soon as they release an official teaser or a trailer video. But if you spotted any other Easter eggs or references or Star Wars jokes in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. One of the other notable things in the episode is that Space Beth was there for the entire episode for Christmas, for the family's Christmas, but didn't really actually contribute that much to the episode. Like, she was just there hanging out. Normally when Space Beth shows up, you would expect her to do something, but this season they've kind of had that bit going on all season long where she just shows up and sits around. Everyone click here for all my Rick and Morty episodes, and click here for my new Joker 2 first look teaser video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.